Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Objective. We are here to talk about a topic that, we've had to delay a couple of times because of various circumstances. But actually, the good thing is the more time passes, the more real this topic becomes in my life and presumably my co-hosts. So the more there is to say about it. The topic, of course, is leaving California. Is it time? Well, I'm starting to think yes. Now, we were supposed to talk about this the other day, but then sadly, my co-host apparently just put his own life and career above bashing California on the internet with us. So we had to reschedule it to today, but we're going to get into it today. Please super chat your thoughts to us. We want to know what you think. People get this glee out of seeing people leave California. Like, it borders on hatred of the good. California has good weather. It's a beautiful place, beautiful people. Why would you cheer to see people leave? I don't like it. We'll get into it. Let us know what you think, and please consider becoming an Ayn Rand Center UK member for exclusive content and to help save the world. Please welcome a guy who, frankly, I would have thought after spending his winter on the Rust Belt would come running back to California screaming, "Take my money and my liberty. Just give me some sunlight." Evidently not. Please welcome Mark Pellegrino.
I think I'm the only person here who was a native of California, born in Pasadena, raised in the Valley, Van Nuys, California, never conceived of leaving the greatest state in the union, because I think it really does offer some great natural attractions, right? You have the beach and the mountains and the desert within 45 minutes of each other. You have sun, a pretty static environment, of weather, at least through the entire year. It's mostly 70 degrees out and sunny. Very rarely does it rain. It's a perfect environment for people to come and live and have happy lives. But unfortunately, the political class has turned it into a hellhole. And I've considered moving out for the past 5 years. My wife has just gotten on board with me over the last 7 or 8 months. And I think we're joining about, 150 to 175,000 people a year who are exiting California for, I think, more free climes, right? Where there's less of a political class to hound them.
Do you know if before that there was a net gain in citizens or people moving to California before 5 years ago?
No, I think the exodus has been happening for a long time, at least 7 years. One of my friends, who's a financial advisor, maybe a hedge fund guy, I don't know. He's a wealthy guy who does stuff with other people's money. He first moved out about 10 or 12 years ago. First went to Idaho and then to Singapore, and he's staying there permanently.
What was it that made you want to leave?
We have the highest income tax in the nation. California has the distinction of having the highest individual income tax in the nation. And given the folks that I have to pay and the taxes that I have to pay worldwide, I didn't want to add the 13+% to the theft of my income. I wanted to be able to keep some of it for the things that I would like to invest in later on. That's the main thing. Also, property taxes are through the roof in comparison to some of the other more friendly, business-friendly and personal liberty-friendly states out there. I know a friend of mine lives in Tennessee. He has a 5-acre spread. He pays about $500 per acre per year. If we live on less than an acre, we can pay upwards of close to 10K for the property taxes.
Yes, and I think the way it's calculated is it's like 1% of the overall price of the house. So if your house costs $1 million, that means, or that's how much you bought it for. You bought it for $1 million. That means as long as you own it, you're paying basically $1,000 a month property taxes. So it gets to the point where it's like literally the cost of renting an apartment in a normal city, I'm paying just in property taxes on top of the mortgage and HOA if you're in a condo. Like it's like, why again? To pay for the public school where I have no kids in? Like, why? What's a property tax is actually giving me in return? What, a police that won't stop people from burning down the city? That was a big turning point for me. I don't know what I mean. I mean, it just I fell out of love with LA, I think, over 2020 with the BLM violence, with seeing Melrose Avenue and Beverly Hills, places like that set on fire. Small business. I mean, the Doc Martin store was burnt down. I mean, a lot of places were, spray paint all over Beverly Hills. I thought there are some things that like we hold kind of sacred. Like, this is our neighborhood. Like we shop there. I mean, we don't all shop there. It's expensive, but like we love this town. To just see the young energy pouring out into this city and just like demolishing it. And then, when I go to like the bank, where like the Sunset Strip ends and Beverly Hills begins, and there's like all those stores, like the bank there has like gigantic glass walls, and it was all boarded up with wood. And I went inside, and like the bankers are like afraid. Obviously, banks are the number one target of the wrath of these nihilists. And
then I just, sorry to interrupt, but some of the things that have been sort of frightening to me. When I was growing up in the Valley in the 70s, I mean, the Valley was sort of Van Nuys in particular was still middle class. It began to deteriorate in the mid 70s and late 70s and into the 80s, and now it's deteriorated quite a bit. But at the time, it was a place to live for people who worked in the city. I'd never seen a homeless person when I was growing up, even in Van Nuys. As citifying as Van Nuys was becoming. It wasn't only when I ventured into the city with my mom and stepdad to their work. They worked at the Los Angeles Times. Would I run across the occasional homeless person? But now vagrancy has been decriminalized, and it's caused an explosion of homeless encampments under almost every overpass in the city. And particularly when you're going into Los Angeles, it's as if you're passing through a third world slum before you get into the city. And a few of my friends have actually had to move out of formerly nice neighborhoods in North Hollywood because 3 blocks away is a homeless encampment. And in the homeless encampment, there's drugs, there's a resurgence of diseases like typhus, and there's violence, and all of this in a place that's supposed to be a safe place to raise children, not. And also, in this is particularly a problem in Northern California, they've decriminalized petty theft. So anything under $900 now is fair game for anybody to walk into a store. And people in San Francisco are actually going into CVS's and Walgreens with plastic sacks and filling the bags up with stuff and walking out. They've had to lock up toothpaste up north. Okay, and this is just some of the practical experiences of anybody in the street. Now we could talk in a few minutes about what kind of legislation seems to be coming down the pike in California. Proposed legislation and legislation that's actually passing. It's just making it increasingly difficult to live there.
Yeah, and like you said, high income tax, progressive income tax in California. CJ in the chat points out that 1% of a million is 10,000. Yes, and what is that a month? Roughly 1,000, give or take. I mean, roughly, right? So that was the point. You don't pay 1% of your cost of your home per month, but I guess per year.
And let's face it, the homes are not worth that. They're at a highly inflated rate right now. And our home is your home gets evaluated by some special bureaucrat who sends you a note in the mail. And the note says what your home is evaluated at and projects your tax. Our home was evaluated at $200,000 or so more than what we actually purchased it at. There's nothing that can substantiate that market evaluation at all. There's nothing except, whatever cheating is going on to inflate the prices of housing right now to cause that bubble.
The impression I got is that your property taxes are set by what you actually paid for the house. Are you saying it actually changes according to how your house is appraised over the years?
Right. Yes. Somebody appraises it from the city. Some bureaucrat appraises it, sends you a note at what they're appraising it at and what that means with respect to adjusting your taxes.
Yeah. So definitely financially, I mean, you're basically, it gets to the point where you're like, I'm spending how much money just to live here? I'm spending how much of my money just to live in this location? It's a great location. Like you said, there's a lot of natural beauty. So what drew me to California originally was, coming from Detroit, right? Like things are bright, beautiful, a lot of ambition, energy. Detroit is like, the way it felt to me is like it's sort of like dead inside, feeling like nostalgic for a more prosperous past. California, everyone's busy, everyone's got a project, everyone's working on stuff, and people are beautiful. People like to be in shape and to eat healthy and all that stuff. It's a very optimistic and kind of a nice culture. But I think I kind of lost a lot of that impression with the riots over last summer. And also, just kind of over time, it's like, okay, there's nice, good looking, ambitious people probably near every big city, certainly more than just LA. And how badly do I need to live in LA? Like, how much money do I need to spend? And I know I was also drawn to, the various industries. There's comedy, acting, stuff like that, music. Okay, I'm probably not going to be an actor. I'm probably not going to be a stand-up comic at the Comedy Store. I hung out there for like the first year that I moved here, and I kind of realized the internet is funnier than whatever's happening in comedy. And comedy has gotten only more cringeworthy over the last few years. It's gotten more politically correct. It's gotten more regulated by cancel culture. They're all moving to the internet. They all want to cash in on what's been happening. So there's just kind of like a number of ways that whatever drew me to California initially has kind of become much less relevant in a number of ways. We got a few super chats. Sammy is bored again with 99 pence. CJ with $2 Canadian says a San Pellegrino for Mark Pellegrino and a picture of a drink. Very nice. LMH with 4 pounds. And Michael with $5 says California is choking on its leftism. Florida is the future. CJ with $2 Canadian says, "Don't California, my Canada." Yeah. Where are you thinking of moving?
That's happening in BC. I think BC is quickly becoming a California.
I would have assumed anywhere in Canada is already like worse, but maybe not.
In some respects, it is.
Yeah.
In some respects, no. Well, at first we were thinking about moving to Texas. Then we were thinking about moving to Tennessee. Now we're thinking about moving to Ireland. Because I don't know that I have faith, and that Florida was, of course, one of the places, but I don't have much confidence in the State of the Union of the United States. I don't know that Iran would go that far, but I'm thinking a separation is probably the best solution to our issue here, and I don't know that I want to be around for that when it happens, because I don't know that the other side, the side that stands for liberty, has the psychological, philosophical, and intellectual ammunition to be able to build something better than what came before it. But I think we should also talk a little bit about the person who put that super chat out there is right. The California is choking on its leftism, and we can talk about some of the laws that have been proposed and some that have passed. California is at war with the gig economy. And when I'm not acting, I like to teach. I'm an independent contractor who works. I used to work for my theater company that I came up in. I learned my craft at, and that crackdown on the gig economy doesn't necessarily affect me, but it certainly affects a lot of my teacher compatriots and friends who would now have to be brought into an employment and under a completely different structure, and that's going to unemploy quite a few of them.
Yeah, that's a good point about California trying to stop people from working on whatever terms they choose. That's profound, though, that you're thinking of leaving the United States altogether.
Well, I looked at the Freedom Index. I looked at the Freedom Index, and the top 3 countries were a no-go for me, particularly Hong Kong, because that's in the midst of being subsumed by communist China. And number 10 on the list was Ireland, and it's one of my favorite countries. And I think they probably offer the best possibilities to us. But hey, California also has banned, I don't know if you knew this, they also banned single-use shampoo bottles. Did you know this? You know those little travel size plastic bottles that
Yeah,
little
you
convenient.
can't sell those or buy those.
Apparently those are banned in the state of California. In its interest to tamp down on plastics use by us poor, benighted citizens, selfish little creepy people, they have banned those from the shelves of California stores.
Yeah, and it's not like some tyrannical government is forcing this on a populace that won't stand for it. I mean, I once when they first banned plastic straws, I was at like a Starbucks in a Target, so not quite a Starbucks store, but one of those mini Starbucks inside of Target store. And I got my iced coffee, and I said, "Oh, do you have any straws?" And the guy working there, he kind of dropped a straw on the counter and said with his accent, he goes, "I could show you a picture of a sad turtle. It might change your mind." Like I'm getting lectured. I'm like lectured by a guy working, handing me my straw. How am I supposed to drink this iced coffee? Which I pour it on my face?
Now, didn't that straw statistic come from a kid, like a 10-year-old kid who was writing a paper for school, and now it's become the cause du jour? And
yeah,
it's pretty scary that children are starting to dictate our policy.
I mean, that is the way. That is this is the way of the left. I mean, this sort of like anti-intellectual, anti-fact sort of approach to the world. So like kids, barbarians, and terrorists basically are like seen as just anything that's non-capitalist, Western, individualistic, and reality-based. Anything outside of that is seen as superior. So if a child decides that plastic straws are killing the planet, then we need to ban them. I know it's not as simple a process as that, but I mean, that's basically where we've moved towards. Greta Thunberg is basically, what is she, Time Person of the Year? It's like, that's it. This is it. We have laws being passed based on the feelings of little kids. This is the way.
There's also been a statewide rent control law passed in California, which
because of COVID.
It may be because of COVID. There's rent caps that are going on. Unfortunately, that's going to cause massive shortages in the housing industry and drive prices through the roof. So that's probably one of the reasons our place has been over-evaluated, because there's scarcity, and scarcity seems to always be created by the government when the government gets involved in things. So you folks who think you're saving something on rent control, you're not. Well, you may be saving yourself something, but you're certainly driving someone else out of a home or driving up the price of their housing.
Yeah, and not only that, but
altruist fashion.
And think of what it does to people's self-esteem. That now they need to stay in this particular apartment forever because I don't want to walk away from this such a great deal. Like my rent can't ever rise. And if you've been in a rent-controlled apartment since the 1970s, you're basically living on Santa Monica Beach for $200 a month or whatever it is. Like you got it made, but that means you're stuck there forever, and you never will let yourself progress to somewhere else.
You're not only stuck there forever, but imagine how much contempt the owners of the building have for you.
Yeah.
And how does that affect your psyche to know that you're actually stealing from somebody? You really are. You're stealing from somebody. I know a guy. I used to live in a rent-controlled building, which I gave up, but I know a guy who's lived there since 1976, and he pays probably about $500 a month for an apartment that should be about close to $3,000 a month, given the demand out there. That's stealing.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. And I again, it's the government is the one doing this, but I hate the culture that wants it and agrees with it and sees no problem with it. The people, they like brag almost, or like they brag, or they're like, oh, cool, rent control. Yeah, awesome. Let's stick it to those fat cats on Main Street, right? It's like, where's the pride? Where's the dignity? So I want to live somewhere where there's more of an entrepreneurial spirit. Like business is business. Let's trade.
Indeed, it makes you adversarial towards each other. Now, look, in my rent-controlled apartment, I redid the entire thing at my own expense. So I redid floors, put in crown molding, put in cabinets and antique stuff, fixtures. I raised their game by my own pocketbook. But because I was in a rent-controlled building, they would try to find excuses to kick me out. So if I, let's say, forgot to tack on $1.25 tax that they had put on every other month onto my rent, $1.25, I would get an eviction notice slapped on my door. And this happened a number of times until I went personally to the office, sat in front of the manager, and said, "Here's the deal. I have been a good tenant there. I fixed up the place at my expense. I didn't bother you for any of that. If you leave another eviction notice on my door for $1.25, I'm going to come down here and you're gonna have a full menu." And that never happened again after that. I said, "Look, it's just bad business." I said, "I know that, the government has placed you in an adversarial role against me and me against you, but let's not play that game with each other."
It really is remarkable that
it's
that
terrible.
happens.
It's terrible. It's terrible. And they've also proposed, we could talk about this in Clubhouse because I don't want to hog up all the time, but there's other laws that have been proposed that I think are just onerous, that would make lives even more miserable. And I think there's a disposition in the legislature to pass these things over the heads of California.
It really is remarkable how these laws end up turning people against each other. Speaking of people, we've got Christopher Smith with 6.99 Canadian saying, "Are the sound stages and business still mostly local, or is it expanding because of tech and other things?" I guess he's asking you. Sound stages, that sounds like something you work in, right? You're on a sound stage, or is he talking to me?
Well, I mean,
I don't know.
there are studios in Hollywood. I have, in the last 10 years, I've probably done 2 jobs in Los Angeles. I did Dexter and I did The Closer in Los Angeles, and one was at Sunset Studios and the other one was at Raleigh Studios. But every other job that I have, I'm out of the country or out of the city. It's just too expensive to do business in Hollywood. I'm surprised there's even shows doing it.
Yeah, Adam Carolla, he's been talking about this for years. Like he'll drive Bryan Cranston to the airport, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to Arizona to shoot a movie or a show." And that he sees these actors all talking about, "Oh, tax the rich, regulate, the rich need to pay their fair share." But then where are the rich producers actually producing their shows in a low tax, low regulation state?
Yeah, and the actors are going there too and buying homes and living. So
of course. I wonder if they'll try to get you somehow, like set up the tax code. So like, even if you work here at all, if you've never set foot in California.
There is something. They did propose a 0.4% wealth tax in California that would follow you. If you had decided to leave in the past 10 years, that 0.4 wealth tax would follow you to whatever state or country you went to. And it would tax 0.4% of all of your assets. Good and Lord. This is seriously considered in California as good.
CJ with $5 Canadian says British Columbia or BC at British Columbia is our California. Toronto is our NYC. Alberta is our Texas. Biggest rodeo in the world is in Calgary, Alberta, by the way. Well, that's fascinating. Here in America, we don't know anything about Canada. So thank you for educating us.
I'll tell you what, I know something about Canada. I've lived in Vancouver for a couple of years. It's the most expensive place in North America. Their rent is even higher in Vancouver, in downtown Vancouver, than it is in New York City.
Wow, that's saying something. Michael Sanders with $10 says Florida is the most free market state in the country, and it has an uneducated population. I think in the next few decades, the high IQ people from California and New York will migrate to Miami. I wonder if Michael is implying that these smart, educated people are going to bring their blue California and New York high IQ socialism with them and ruin the state. But that's kind of what I'm suspecting is going to happen. Have you thought about Florida?
Yeah, we did think about Florida. They are certainly bringing that blue wave to Austin. And I think it's the reason Matthew McConaughey has fashioned himself the mayor of Austin, to try to keep that philosophical wave from crashing over and taking over Austin.
So McConaughey is more of a right-leaning kind of economic freedom guy.
Yeah, I don't know his politics, but he definitely doesn't stand for the leftist nonsense.
Okay, now people have urged me, move to Austin, which is a really nice thing to hear. Like, oh, people want you to move somewhere. But I'm like, okay, I'm looking at Vegas. That's probably where I'm going to go next. It's close by and it's very, much cheaper. And Austin just seems like for years I've been hearing them complain about how it's gotten too, corporate and neatly packaged, and they're saying is keep Austin weird. You know who doesn't have to say keep us weird? Vegas. They don't have to say it because they don't have it to worry about that. Robert with 569 says, warning, if someone tells you that a new law or regulation will result in perverse incentives, that's not as sexy as it sounds. Ain't that the truth? The Shadow Blade with £5 says, looking to move out of the UK, where would you recommend? Both in USA and elsewhere. Well, it sounds like Ireland would be a good choice.
That's where I'm going.
Is that technically part of the UK, or is that what they're all arguing about over there?
Well, not the South, but that's where I would be.
Interesting.
I would probably go to Cork.
So you like Ireland? Interesting.
Love Ireland.
Love Ireland. Do you know if your ancestry is Irish, or is that
according to my ancestry DNA, I've got 5% Irish in me.
Wow.
25% Scottish. So I'm in that general region.
Nice. Home of the Enlightenment.
That's right.
The right one, anyway. Anyway, coming up tonight at 10 p.m. UK time, 5 Eastern, Life on Earth with Robert Naser. Yes, the guy from the Super Chat. Ambition versus Zen and Stoicism. Looking forward to that. And then coming up on Fridays. Okay, big announcement. Should I read it? Do you want to announce it? Do you know what Razi's getting at here?
I think so. Yeah, we've been trying to, me and Jacqueline and Jennifer put our heads together, try to figure out a show to replace the psychology of the Atlas Shrugged characters that was going on at 10 p.m. UK time, 5 p.m. Eastern on Fridays here at the Objective Standard. And we came up with a kind of idea that will sort of, I don't think we've settled on the title yet, but it'll sort of be something like popular TV shows versus Ayn Rand versus Atlas Shrugged. And what we will do is take shows and sort of pick them apart, analyze them and critique them and compare them to the vision of objectivism and see how they stand up. I think the first show we're going to be starting with will be Fleabag. So if anybody wants to get out there and check out Fleabag, and you can participate in conversation, tell us your thoughts both during the show and at the clubhouse afterwards, that would be great.
Now, you said here at the Objective Standard. I think you meant at Ayn Rand Center UK.
Excuse me. Yes, Ayn Rand Center UK Objective Standard.
It's good to have such an abundance of objectivist related organizations that you could even confuse them. Okay, so guys, this is big. New series coming to Ayn Rand Center UK, starring Mark Pellegrino. Imagine saying we've got a new series with Mark Pellegrino, and it's not going to be on Showtime. By the way, LMH with £5 says, sounds awesome. You're exactly right. We're looking forward to that. So you and the women from a recent episode who are going to be producing The Strike, they're going to be talking with you about TV, comparing different shows to Atlas Shrugged or something to that effect. Fridays at 10 p.m. UK time, 5 p.m. Eastern, premiering next week.
Right, and if you guys didn't see the show with Jennifer and Jacqueline and I discussing Atlas Shrugged, it was the June 10th show, I believe, right? It was called Atlas Shrugged miniseries, if I'm not mistaken. Our Lord Emperor would know this, but you should check that out and come on in and join the conversation. It's going to be stimulating.
I'm sure Razi is already fetching the link. We've got, you'll never believe who we've got in the chat. Jax Schumann. She says, women. Exactly right.
She just says women.
Speaking of women, Hugh James in the chat says, only Caitlyn Jenner can save California. All I can say is good luck with all of that. I am out of here, I think, most likely. But that's fascinating that you're actually now looking at just leaving the U.S. altogether. I mean, this is big. This is big. America was supposed to be the last great hope. But I mean, frankly, I've a little bit fallen out of love with America anyway, as well. Robert with 269 says, new show, Diamonds. He posts. Very nice. All right, everybody. Let's jump over to Clubhouse. I hope you've learned a little bit about what we're dealing with here in the Golden State. Is that what it's called? The Sunshine State, the Polar Bear Flag State? I don't even know. Jax with $4.99 in the super chat. They just won't let us end this show. She says, technically, it's a limited series. As opposed
That's correct.
To, Yeah.
A limited series.
That's right. I mean, once the story ends, what are they going to do? Just keep adding on seasons like Shameless or something like that? Maybe. Money talks. That's what I say. Jump over to Clubhouse, everybody. Meet us there. You can ask Mark to expand on some of the regulations that are ruining people's lives. You can ask me about why Vegas. You can give your opinion. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe California is not as bad as it seems. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you back here same time tomorrow on the Daily Objective. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Rucka.
And goodbye.